may recall this piece was the inside shape, the inner shape of our wheel well, the vertical of the quarter panel, and of course the horizontal of the lip of the quarter panel with the flared up tip to allow the fold that holds the fender skirt in place. So if we look at this fender skirt that has the rubber largely gone, you can see that that's about where we want our curve, obviously taking into account the thickness of the metal. So measuring, looks like it's about 3/4 of an inch from the face of the quarter panel or the fender skirt to the V right here. So what was done, we have our 3/4 of an inch mark here, and we ran this along the edge of the quarter panel because the edge right here isn't as sharp as on the factory fender, and this way we kind of get the average of where the fold for the fender skirt needs to be. So we're gonna use this mark here to do our fold. We're gonna put a soft fold in so we can move it a little bit, but that's really the next trick to figure out how to fit the fender skirt, to fine tune where the quarter panel is gonna sit on the car. Have a little bit of a low spot here as well. It fits good other than that one area, so we'll have to stretch that a little bit before we do our final fitment. We're gonna start by using the vise to make our initial bends. There's a little problem with bending on the vise. There's not enough metal to pull against, so I'm afraid I'm going to change the basic shape of the curve here, the primary curve of the panel, by trying to put a bend in here. Bead roller with a tipping die won't work either because this is too small of a space to allow room for the rollers and the attaching bolts. Not only that, but I don't have tipping die, which, anyway, there you go. So what we're going to do, we're going to use this piece of leaf spring with another piece of leaf spring behind it to fatten it up, and that should serve as an anvil. Let's see, so like that. That way the edge of the leaf spring where we'll make the fold, that's about in line with the line because of the thickness of the two pieces. I'll let you know how I make out. let's check our progress. Looks pretty good. Let's take this fender skirt and let's eyeball that. Oh, there's a little piece of rubber in the way there. Staple and rubber. Let's see. Doesn't look too shabby. We might need to crisp up the angle a little bit, but it looks like it's in about the right position. Doesn't look like we've affected our 90-degree angle too much either. And looks like we're fitting fairly flush on this aspect as well. In other words, it looks like the groove isn't too far in or too far out. There we go. Wish I had a third hand. Okay. For the curved portion, I'm going to use two slappers, two curved tipped slappers for the basis of the anvil, and I will use a ball peen because we need to stretch this area substantially on this curve. So let's see how we make out with that. I'm not able to manage the thickness of two slappers too well, so we're just kind of holding this as tight as we can without a spacer in there to get this bent along the line. So lots more small hits. Not too shabby. Yeah, a little waffly there. Let's try and straighten that out. We'll try the slapper that has a little more curve to it. There we go. Not too shabby. We'll straighten that up with hammer and dolly. Let's see how our skirts fit. So here's how our skirt fits. You can see it fits pretty tight without the rubber there. Obviously, we haven't gone far enough to get it fitting all the way back. Plus, this skirt has the tab on it. So now let's take our other skirt. This one has the rubber on it, obviously, and it fits pretty nice along there. Obviously, we have to get it a little tighter in here to get everything fitting and shaped properly. Another aspect, this is getting pretty fat down here. I know it's a little fatter at the final curve at the lower edge of the quarter panel. I do think we need to trim this a little bit though before we can make the bend in order to better negotiate the curve with less stretching and distortion. Right now, I'm going to use a slapper and I'm going to pretty up this, true up this flat section here, because by stretching and putting the bevel in, we are distorting the flat portion of the curve a little bit. What I did to true that up, I used the relatively flat edge of this piece of leaf spring, and this is a slapper with a fairly heavily crowned face, and I hit here, which reinforces the curve, and I also hit this way, which increases, but also smoothes out the stretch a little bit. Another check, we take our old template here and let's run it through. See if I can get the best angle for the camera. So let's see. Not too shabby. Looks like we could use a little more stretch around the curve here. And nice thing is we haven't distorted this aspect of the replacement quarter panel. Time for a little sanity check. We've got it fitted up on the car here, not super precise, but we have the back pushed up to where it should be. We have a couple of clamps in here. Of course, now that it's flanged, it does pull away from the top a little bit because it pulls in tighter at the bottom because of the thickness of the original metal underneath. So that'll correct itself shortly. But the real thing we're after is the template. How are we fitting with the template? And so far, looks good. There's a little gap at the top, but we know that that's a flaw with the template. Back here in the corner, we're fitting pretty tight. Obviously, we're still out down here because we haven't flanged that yet, haven't shaped that fully. So anyway, the shape comes to here, the skirt comes down to about here. So we are going to have to trim this a little bit just to continue our stretching and flanging process. Maybe flange isn't the right word, but you know what I'm trying to say. So to figure out the curve for the flange on the lower portion of the passenger quarter panel, we turn to the driver's side of the car, which is less rusty, and we make a little template. Here we'll index it on the hole for the fender skirt mount. There's that little mark there, and this little piece of cardboard shows us about how thick, how wide the sheet metal is and where the flare is. There we go. So then we translate that onto here. This longer line is the mark where the mounting point for the fender skirt is, and I determined that by lining up this skirt and seeing where the pin points. So by flipping our pattern over and lining it up with that index, we can see approximately how much of the fender to cut off and roughly where the flange line should be, which is close to what we had spec'd out before. We're gonna fit this against the inner quarter though to confirm for sure. So in a rare run of nice weather, we've come outside and we've trimmed the edge a little bit with our disc cutter, 1/16 inch disc. You can see the piece right here, and we're gonna clean the edge up with the bastard file, save on the grinding, maybe knock this high spot off here, knock the burrs off, and we'll try and further refine our fold line or our flange line. So to make this bend in here, we're gonna need a deeper throated anvil. So here we have maybe half a leaf spring with Rube Goldberg fattener upper here, and that should give us the distance we need to form our next edge. I'll let you know how I make out. So after reshaping the fender edge, looks like the fender skirt fits pretty well. It's held up in there at the moment with vice grips along the lip on the two corners. And the curve is such that the stainless steel trim fits pretty nice along the top there. One minor thing to address down here, we're sticking out a little bit far. Once we put the pin in, I think I'll increase the angle of the flange a little bit there, a little more there, to drive the top in a little farther, which should help address this gap here. Also, you can see this fender skirt's kind of bent. So once I once I get ready to make the hole here for the pin, I'll start fitting up the other fender skirt, which is a little more true to the original shape. One other point, the template I was using was essentially setting in there flat. So it drew the quarter panel a little farther back than it needs to be now that the fender skirt is fitted. And of course, when I fit the template follows the convex nature of the skirt and the quarter panel, and it also fits pretty good. So the template, while helpful, it did cause me to locate the quarter panel a little farther back than would ordinarily be. Haven't really done any serious cutting or mounting yet, so shifting the quarter panel an eighth of an inch or so front to back isn't an issue. Anyway, it does fit tight now that the lip is flanged a bit. It fits fairly tight against the inner quarter, so I'm going to have to rethink how to assemble things in which order so I can get everything up there properly. I mean, worst case, I may have to splice it right there in order to get the pieces in, but we'll do a little more figuring first. I hate to cut the outer body panels unnecessarily.